Hey, Alex.
Hey,
We've already opened it up to people, so I'm gonna put it on my camera on close for right now and mute it, right?
sure.
At least for the next like 6 minutes. All right. Good morning, everybody. We're just going to let people trickle in here in the next few minutes, and then we'll kick off. Alex, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, great.
Here we can catch a typo right away here. 2024, here we are.
Oh, man, that is a good typo. Okay, I'm going to actually change that really quick. Especially if we're recording this. There we go. First typo of the day. Oh, man. Do you have one of those toothbrushes that like give you a smiley face if you brush correctly?
I do
It's
not. No. Do I
it's
need one?
I think you do. I mean, there's it's something weird, oddly gratifying about getting a smiley face, and then like if you do like okay, it has like a straight line and like dots for eyes. But if you do it really well, then you get like a smile and stars. And I haven't totally figured out the recipe because you'd think it's just like a time thing, but it's not. So,
Hmm.
you know, I know it's kind of one of those things where I was like, okay, maybe our next like maybe our like meme technology hardware technology should be a toothbrush that rewards currency and deducts currency based off of how well you perform and then sell the data back to the dental industry. Um, Kind of it's got me hooked. I was like, man, I got to do better today. I got to do better. I'm gonna get yelled at. I'm gonna get beat.
Yeah. Got the negative reinforcement. You need some positive
Yeah,
reinforcement there.
I just don't understand why sometimes I get like the smiley face with the stars and sometimes I don't. And I keep thinking it's a time thing, but it's not. And um, so I don't know. It's like maybe how aggressive you're going. I don't know.
Gotta get one of those for my
Probably
kid.
you have to get one of those. It's really great. Yeah. Of course, we're probably pretty soon going to be having people just like tell us what to do and you know, hey, where do you want to go eat tonight? It's like this place, like through all the AI and stuff, decides that you're going to eat here, and then we lose freedom of choice, and then so goes the world. I don't know, but maybe choice is just an optical illusion. I don't know.
That's what this hour is going to be about. It's a little philosophy,
I love
forward
going into the
thinking.
plot. Forward thinking, isn't it all just? I've had so many like existential conversations and thoughts lately. It's been very interesting. So must be a theme. Full moon was last night. You know, we'll
Yeah,
give it
I
like
get you.
one more minute, and then we'll take off. Maybe the different hour kind of threw people off. 10 a.m. instead of noon. I forget why I did that, but maybe to catch more time zones, or maybe that's the window of opportunity I had.
Yeah, a little earlier for the West Coast, midday
Yeah,
East Coast. I guess we catch Europe a bit with this one. So
yeah.
it's better.
All right, should we kick this off or let a few more people trickle in?
Looks like we're at even 100 now. It's pretty good.
Mhm.
Good number to start with.
Yeah. All right, I will kick it off. If my dog starts barking in the background and it becomes extremely annoying, I will give this a pause and hand the reins over to Alex. Today is Hypergraph 54. It's April 24th. Um, Joined with Alex Brandes, our CTO, to really walk through a lot of what we're building and what's on the horizon for the rest of this year, which I've been really excited about. because we've been planning a lot of this for several months, and or you could say years for all that matter. But let me kick things off. So we're going to walk through, we're going to do a little intro, kind of break the ice, where we are today, how our vision is, how it kind of plays into the general market, kind of a recap of what we're doing for all those people that are new. Then we're going to discuss network priorities and talk about progress. What are our goals? We recently did this with our company, where we did what we call an all hands, where we got everybody together. We walked through the goals of the company, where our focus is, and what products should be kind of prioritized. And then Alex is going to walk us through kind of case for metagraphs, kind of recapping the value proposition around metagraphs, what we're seeing in terms of development, what we're seeing in terms of features and competitive analysis. We're going to walk through a little bit on our focus around liquidity into our ecosystem. And then Alex is that naturally kind of dives into our decentralized exchange that we've been building behind the scenes. And Alex is going to walk through all the different mechanisms, the technical roadmap, the architecture, how Lattice plays into it, and really show how all products and services that we are building in Constellation are finally coming together in a more streamlined narrative. And then we're going to talk about future development. As many of you know, we've been very, close to the chest with all future development, really kind of focusing on more short-term deliveries versus long-term vision. And that's been a lot of our press to not only be theoretical in nature, but also be a little more poignant in our ability to deliver and what we're delivering and the value proposition that we're delivering. So to kick things off, for those of you that are new, we are a DAG-powered ecosystem. We consider ourselves a layer 0 network that enables developers to build scalable applications with off-chain data and customization. Basically, build your own L1 network on top of our L0. So our vision really is to bring Web3 to Web2, allowing anyone to build a blockchain specific to their needs. So we kind of consider this application-specific networks for small, medium-sized enterprise businesses and Web3. And really what we're focused on is not just going after one industry, but a hybrid approach that will allow us to tackle or extract value from external sources. And as noted, we are validated by the U.S. Department of Defense, as we've had ongoing work with them for the past 5 years. A little bit of who we are. Most of you already know this. We were founded in 2017, 2018, where we really came out the gates. Our leadership depicted on this slide come from Oracle, Apple, Salesforce, Bloomberg, and some of the team came from Door Technologies. And we are a full stack support, everywhere from hardware, software to infrastructure layer. We're tackling innovation at all different levels. And to kind of realize our vision of Web2 or Web3 coming into Web2, last year we kicked off our enterprise advisory board, where as the technology's been more mature, we came out with metagraphs. We wanted to really accelerate the adoption curve of our technology and of our network-based approach. And we've aligned with certain leaders like Art Siebold, who actually worked with us on the DoD contract years ago, has come on board. He was a former CIO of Omni Air. Alan Boehm was the former CTO of Coca-Cola, in charge of innovation. He was also the former CTO of Procter & Gamble, and he was also the former CTO of H&M. He's got an amazing resume and a really great knack for business intelligence. Ken Spedding has been working with us on the front lines to bring in new opportunities across different agencies in the government. Eric Bethel was the former executive director of the World Bank, representing not Constellation, but the United States. And Michael Sandoval was one of the former GMs of Microsoft, and now Michael is leading a company in advanced artificial intelligence. So an amazing group of individuals, and we're continuing to talk with more people as they help us kind of spearhead new business development initiatives. So really kind of, I thought it was kind of interesting to kind of set the tone of this conversation and why Constellation and why now. And last week I published a piece in Medium that really talked about um, really how the industry has put billions of dollars towards this incredible decentralized technology, and that billions of dollars has kind of warranted the result of very advanced protocols, but also very advanced DeFi. And a lot of my argument and conversation in the piece was we need to be doing more with that. How do we pull in external value and where value is created in the traditional economy and bring that into Web3? That all this billions of dollars has to do more than just a kind of full circle flywheel within its own industry, but how do we extract more value into our Web3 flywheel? And so we kind of talked a little about the industry 4.0, this next frontier of data strategies using decentralized network. And at the front of this, I think, is our narrative around Constellation being compatible with existing cloud infrastructure, existing data management tools that really push more towards edge computing. And so a lot of our vision here is that with data intensive applications on the horizon, AI, IoT, all coming into realization, we're going to have to shift that processing back towards the edge. And we have to look at mechanisms such as decentralization and decentralized compute to be able to scale appropriately. And I think for our industry right now, I think we're at that point. I think DeFi has done an amazing job of capturing value, keeping the value within the industry, actually upholding the industry in so many different ways, advancing capabilities of layer one and layer two protocols. But I think we're starting to enter into an era where we're going to start looking at how do we bring in more external value. Well, that's already being done. We're starting to see mature technology. This is not 2019 where a lot of these visions fell flat. We're actually in a world where we are starting to look at the capabilities of real world assets and tokenizing those real world assets. We're seeing the DePIN movement. Largely, we were one of the key players in the early start of the DePIN movement. We're seeing the ability to securely send information over blockchain. We're evolving loyalty and participation in programmatic ways. We're exploring that even through Door. But brands are really starting to look at this as well. I have several meetings every week that are talking about evolving loyalty incentive and programs, and how do we capture bounties? How do we capture a new generation that's really fulfilling the promises of a free-flowing economy? And now we're starting to see blockchain application in AI. I'm seeing startups happen every day that are having some sort of play into artificial intelligence, but also creating assurance outputs. So that real world vision where we can extract value from external markets is really on the horizon. But why for Constellation? And this is something I put together for our team last week that I thought I'd share with everybody. Number one, we're at a full stack innovation point. We have hardware, software, we're maintaining multiple products and services. We have protocol development all under one umbrella that's allowing us to kind of think and be innovative across departments. And I think this is a really unique aspect that we differentiate ourselves from other ecosystems that are widely distributed, hard to navigate. But at the core of Constellation, we have a diverse set of knowledge that's helping us be innovative, and think rapidly around the next frontier of applications, as well as how that applies to more B2B efforts and SMEs. Validated. So some of the work we did some research last week, and one of the things that we found out that Constellation was actually in the top 1% of all federal funding for blockchain development. It was pretty interesting to see this as we did an analysis, and we saw that most blockchain exploration, development, and R&D efforts were in 2018, 2019, were quickly deprecated. They were quickly canceled because most protocols couldn't fulfill the needs and capabilities of what the federal government wanted. And if you know our timeline, 2019 was really when we started to get our first introduction into the federal government, where we approached a completely different new problem set around solving data assurance using distributed networking. So really validating moment right now that's allowing us to come into a world where the tech is ready and we're starting to see a new pattern of which we're making strides of being a household name in the federal government. And to that point, our tech is ready. There's a ton that we can build here. Alex is going to walk through how we're going to be able to, how we're building our decentralized exchange, but also how that's going to open up more tooling for developers to create more advanced applications. This is happening a lot faster right now. And I think one of the other interesting things for Constellation is we're venturing where no one is right now. A lot of people are really focused on isolated, insular Web3 ecosystems. And what we're really doing is trying to extend the value proposition where it hasn't otherwise been seen across small, medium enterprise businesses, and bring some of that valuation, that GDP, if you will, back into our ecosystem for this entire industry to grow. And I think we saw a little bit of the potential when institutions came in through the Bitcoin ETF. And so through this presentation, what we really want to highlight is that we're focusing on delivering products and services that allow us to capture external value, that allow us to capture liquidity, that really focus on adoption. That it's not so much about the names of certain products, but it's the ability to deconstruct certain ideas from the past, provide solutions to existing problems that help us achieve more liquidity, more adoption, all the while selling our unique sales and value proposition. And we are the network that enables application-specific networks. So progress equals momentum equals success. I'm extremely proud of this company for continually showing progress, momentum, and we are achieving a lot of success in this space. One thing I often get asked is like, who is our customer base? And I think this is pretty interesting because I see Dagnum doing a lot of tweets out there on the federal government, does an amazing amount of research. I see a lot of people in the community really trying to help bring in business development opportunities. And so I thought I'd put together this slide of kind of where the levels of support happen and who are we going after as a company? What do we see as opportunities? And so Constellation's real approach is really diversified across multiple industries. And this kind of allows us to go through volatility swings in different industries. Each industry has its own swings. We've seen it in Web3, but so is traditional business in many ways. And all customers, the commonality across all these is that all these companies need some sort of liquidity and utility of blockchain technology, of cryptocurrencies to fuel discovery, adoption, marketability of their network. So when we think of Constellation as the application-specific networks, all of these networks need certain components. They need marketability. They need adoption in one way or another. And so at the very top of our diagram, we have mission critical solutions. This is where our core technology solves mission critical information security across workflows. And all the way at the bottom, you see Web3. That doesn't mean it's less important. It just means that the needs are completely different. And so at the very top, you've got security is the utmost important when you talk to the Department of Defense. So we're highlighting a different value proposition versus Web3 businesses really focus on creating network effects through incentivization and loyalty that create kind of awareness and marketing around their project. These are very different use cases, but all have a commonality around the same tools. And so how does this really kind of differ in the space? How do we kind of separate ourselves from others? And what are we seeing in terms of trends? As I mentioned, I think the next Web3, next frontier of Web3 applications will be capturing external value. So what does that mean, right? I've already said that a couple of times. Well, when we talk about the fact that Constellation is customizable, flexible frameworks, we're really talking about it being able to integrate in existing infrastructures, not being so isolated as an ecosystem, not having you to choose this or that, but actually a blend of both so that we can plug in, not rip and replace and go. And so when we did sort of an analysis of our approach and to see if we're on track, what I broke down is three different ways, the three primary ways that blockchain technology generates fees. The first is from L1 protocols and node validator nodes. The second most valuable are DeFi fees. And the third are services-oriented businesses. What that means is these are blockchains that are attempting to replace Web2 services that currently exist by using blockchain and being more cost-effective, faster, and cheaper. And those types of projects are anywhere from Filecoin, Chainlink, Theta, BAT, Helium, and Flux. And there's a few out there, but there's not a ton. And the value proposition is kind of different than, say, a DeFi application. The value proposition is, hey, we can replace an S3 instance. We can be cheaper, more effective, and more reliable. But in order for this technology and services to scale, I think this is where Constellation really kind of fits in terms of our market approach, is that we see an opportunity to scale through not having to rip and replace. You don't have to rip and replace your technology. We're really enhancing your existing infrastructure. And we can enhance it further by adding incentives, better distribution, network effects through community-oriented nodes and networks. And ultimately, this will rely on providing security, transparent incentivization by design, not as the core value proposition, but just part of it as design. And so I thought it would also be really important that we all kind of show you what are our priorities at the company. And where this isn't really a roadmap, it's really kind of setting an expectation of how do we think about the priorities of the company so that they align with the community. And so on the left, our first major priority that really fulfills this, building out a flywheel of our ecosystem. We're finally at a point to build out a flywheel that's kind of a perpetual self-fulfilling circle. The first of our priorities is to provide liquidity for our ecosystem. I think we all know that that's badly needed. We're doing that through tier one exchange relationships and bridging to other ecosystems. We're currently building our ecosystem DEX, and we're turning Lattice into a convex-like platform, convex in the relationship to Curve. And so these kind of four approaches, if you will, are really allowing us to bring in different sources of liquidity to attract more community, attract token appreciation, and create more ecosystem fluidity, meaning being able to move and migrate between different ecosystems. The major priority at the company that we have is building out partnerships like the NDF, direct solicitation to opportunities such as the federal government and other agencies. On-ramps like our DEX will attract more network adoption, and educational events, hackathons, flight programs are in planning. All of these things kind of come together to provide us a unique approach to our strategic advantage on getting adoption. NDF, for example, has been an incredible organization that's already built about 100 founding partners, from the US Department of Treasury to NASA to Microsoft, IBM, Forward Edge AI, and there's tons of companies coming every day that are able to work with our blockchain through a currency voting mechanism. And they see us as kind of the reliable chain to work with. It's already been validated by the government. They have a lot of trust in that. And that's already becoming a very fruitful line of business for us. And then on the final priority is really improve on our unique sales proposition. So what is our USP? Our USP is that we provide more flexibility, we provide customization, and we're cheaper and faster than other protocols. But I think at the core of what we're doing, our value proposition, we want to make it easier for people to build. So yes, we think it's it's a competitive advantage to be integrating with existing infrastructure, but we also want to make it easy to integrate with existing infrastructure so that we can enhance existing or antiquated infrastructure. We don't actually believe that all Web 2 is going to be ripped out and replaced. We're not going to have this one exodus where people move away from all Web 2 services and solutions and migrate to Web 3, but there's going to be enhancements. And that's where Constellation really focuses on not being such an insular ecosystem, but allow that kind of integrated level relationship with existing infrastructure. And so on the right, so what makes the recipe for a flywheel ecosystem? More community, token, and ecosystem fluidity. That's liquidity at its core. You add in more transactions through network adoption, then add in easier and more reasons to build. You have a self-fulfilling perpetual flywheel that can really fulfill itself. So I'm going to hand it over to Alex, kind of walk through the case for Metagraphs.
Yeah, great. I think wanted to just really clearly lay out the case for metagraphs. I think sometimes the value proposition and what we have and what we're working with is sometimes lost in these conversations about specific features, this or that. So we can just start with sort of what are metagraphs offering, and how is that maybe different from what other platforms are offering. One of the biggest advantages of a metagraph is that it connects to the real world. So in a metagraph, you can make external API calls, interact with third-party services, and another huge item is ingest nearly any data type or data format. So that means that the metagraph can conform to the format of external services and not force those external services or clients to conform to its internal transaction type. We see that being really useful in IoT. That's what we're doing with Door, where we have a binary format being sent by the devices, and the metagraph is able to easily understand that and work with that format from the device. You also have full control over the code base. So this is really the way that traditional Web 2 server-side frameworks work, is that you have complete control of the code base. You can import your own libraries. You can write all your own custom business logic, and the framework is just there to kind of help you along with that process. This is not something that other networks are doing. It's fairly unique to metagraphs. We also have flexible state management, so you can define all the internal data structures that you may need, and then have the ability to determine the level of data privacy that your application requires. So you could choose to submit all data on-chain publicly. You could submit partial data, or essentially no data with a notarization type system where you would just submit a hash publicly that tracks to some sort of other data store that's private. Metagraphs are also scalable. So since we have a microservice style architecture, you can scale out each individual layer to meet the demands that are placed on those layers. You could scale out the L1 layers, which are the graph-based consensus layers, for higher throughput. You could scale out the L0 layer for increased security and decentralization. So that ability to individually scale portions of the metagraph, it really helps us meet these kind of enterprise or government-sized workloads. We have sort of this idea of an application-specific network. So when you're developing a metagraph, you're developing your own complete network, and it's really contains your own business logic, which can be whatever works for your organization, and that amount of customization is really important. We have, I guess, the other important aspect of this is what we're describing here is what's live now, right? This isn't future features. This is how it'll work eventually in the future. This is what metagraphs are now. If you use Euclid and the currency framework, you can take advantage of all these attributes essentially immediately. We can jump to the next slide. And then just wanted to highlight a few real-world use cases. So again, these are applications and metagraphs that are actually built and being used. These are all real cases, not potential cases. So IoT, of course, so we're looking at secure source attribution. and incentivization systems, and Door is a really great example of both of those attributes. It's as use cases in artificial intelligence, proving data provenance, this idea of immutable decision records for how a model sends its output. We can make sure that's stored on chain. Security, of course. We've been working on multiple demos and various projects with our partners at Forward Edge AI, which we met through NDF, and some really exciting things there that we demoed a few of those privately recently. Of course, cross-chain communication, so secure information sharing, unspoofable data in these streams of communication. That's what we're working with the DoD through Iron Spider with, and there's some very good applications that are being developed there. And then we've been seeing really a lot of activity around smaller government and organization use cases. I think NDF has been a really great kind of accelerator for us in that space. So we're seeing projects that are interested in flexible on-chain business logic, voting, governance, tokens, and just this ability to kind of be flexible and incorporate their own business logic into these on-chain solutions. We can jump to next. And just a reminder for, I guess, for anyone that has read the most recent white paper on network fees, I think we have a really unique fee structure that complements the rest of the metagraph model that we have. So snapshot fees are really the only significant source of fees on the network. So the only place that fees are charged is between a metagraph submitting snapshots and the hypergraph accepting them. So that means that users are never charged fees directly, right? So the end user of a metagraph is never going to be charged a fee directly by hypergraph, which means that a metagraph can choose its own funding structures for how fees are charged or not charged. In the case of, say, government applications or nonprofits, you may not want to charge the end user anything, and that those fees would be paid for out of grants or some other system. Other projects may choose to pass those fees directly onto users, but this kind of ability to choose how those fees are passed on is fairly unique. We can say, I think, that our fees are among the lowest in the industry. There's sort of a apples to oranges comparisons there, so I won't make too intense of a claim, but there's significantly lower fees than many other networks out there. And then in terms of kind of overall impact on the network and tokenomics, fees are irrevocable and removed from circulation, which reduces network inflationary pressures. So the more fees that are charged, which is more metagraphs online, processing more data, the less network inflation we're seeing, and so that would sort of rise all ships with that reduction in supply.
And we have those going into testnet next week.
Yes, we should have first snapshot fees implementation going to testnet likely next week. It's looking like maybe this week, but we'll say next week, and then we'll see that hit integration net fairly shortly after that, before mainnet. So we're on the verge of this being released.
So what does this all mean coming into the realm of liquidity, and how are we focusing on it and thinking about it? So outside of centralized exchange listings, which we are continuing to build inroads and relationships across many partners, we're going to be inviting more liquidity through various products that hopefully the goal is that this will bring awareness to our ecosystem in different ways, because there's also ways to interact. So our first way of bringing in liquidity is through the DAG bridge into ETH. This is being built with our partner 3A DAO. They've been incredible to work with. If you haven't followed them, please look into them. They're doing amazing things, and they're rapidly iterating. What does this mean to build a bridge? So I think we all kind of know, but from a high level, this actually means that we can start to build DeFi pools with a wrapped DAG token. We're going to start with the Ethereum-based DeFi pools. But from 3A DAO's perspective, this also allows us to collateralize DAG and receive Euro 3 stablecoin loans against collateralized DAG. So you don't need to sell DAG. And we're ultimately able to tap into multi-billion-dollar ecosystems and yield farming opportunities. So a really good way to start to look at liquidity and economic or ecosystem fluidity. Number two, our decentralized exchange. This will also attack yield farming through liquidity pools. People will be able to post collateral into a DAG to Metagraph swap and receive yield from those swaps. So another point of yield farming. And the final point of that we're exploring on liquidity and building towards is Lattice. And Alex is going to go a little bit more into how Lattice Gateway how our proposal for Lattice Gateway should change and the role of VELTX. But essentially, our vision is that by turning this into a bribing platform, we can invite ways to recirculate liquidity and emissions back into the DEX and attract more people into our ecosystem. And so really all this means is that liquidity is creating multiple points of yield farming. There's reasons not to sell DAG out there by collateralizing against it. And this ultimately creates this flywheel of opportunity to engage within our ecosystem, gamifying emissions, getting metagraphs to participate and bribe for liquidity, creating liquidity pools across DeFi. There's going to be some really interesting things that open up over the next couple months.
All right, so yeah, I think the first question that comes up is, to my mind at least, is why are we focusing on building a decentralized exchange at this point? And the answer is that we believe that this is the missing piece of the ecosystem that will unlock flows of liquidity, will unlock Metagraph developers from being blocked, and really kind of benefit the system overall. So the reason for that is, one, liquidity. L0 tokens currently, if they launch, have no option to swap value within our ecosystem. And so they would need to create relationships with external centralized exchanges in order to do that. And we know that that's a process that's difficult, it's time consuming, it's expensive, and it's dangerous, like we've seen with Bit4X and the Door token, where they were suddenly shut down. So it really would, really disincentivize Metagraph projects from launching an L0 token if they can't give that token value easily. And so the DEX allows DAG and L0 token pairs to be swapped, potentially L0 token and token pairs as well, but primarily swapping to DAG. DAG then becomes a source of value transfer for the network, so it gives additional utility to DAG. DAG can focus on creating more external centralized exchange listings. It can focus on the wrap DAG bridge, which is bridging liquidity into the Ethereum ecosystem. And so all that focus can be through DAG. And what that means for DAG is that there's going to be additional volume. There's going to be additional trading activity, transaction activity, and volume on exchanges. So I know there's been a lot of pushes from the community to say, hey, why aren't we on US-based exchanges, more stable exchanges? And I think one of the big answers to that is trade volume. Whether that's the only reason, it's not necessarily certain, but with high trade volume, all those conversations become much easier. And so you can kind of see with the DEX, then we'll have all this additional interest flowing into L0 tokens, flowing back out through DAG to external systems. Can jump to next. So kind of digging into the design of the DEX itself, we kind of have to look at the hypergraph metagraph model and what are the responsibilities of each, how do they interact? And so what we're looking at here is kind of the first implementation of metagraph to metagraph interactions moderated by the hypergraph. And so believe that's one of the primary responsibilities of the hypergraph is to almost like a federated system. The hypergraph is there to kind of moderate interstate activity or interstate trade in this case, or metagraph to metagraph trade. The hypergraph also provides opt-in standards for metagraphs that give them additional functionality. So for example, the L0 token standard, the dependent operations that we'll be talking about here in a minute, metagraphs can opt into this functionality and make use of it through these standards that are defined and understood by the hypergraph. The hypergraph also becomes, or is, the ultimate source of truth for the network via its immutable chain of snapshots. We can jump to the next. So our strategy for implementing the DEX is to implement a set of protocol primitives, or essentially new transaction types and behaviors that are understood by the hypergraph that are available to metagraphs through the currency framework. And these primitives can be used in a really efficient way on the hypergraph without the need for executors or any sort of smart contracting functionality. This is a really efficient way for metagraphs to communicate for specific actions through the hypergraph, specifically in this case, swaps. But these primitives also have implications for use cases beyond swaps. And so it was really important for us to build it in a way that we're not just building a DEX that supports swaps, but we're building functionality that can be used for swaps and is going to be really beneficial for other activity on the network as well. So kind of the primary mechanism that we're introducing here is this idea of allow spend. It's a delegated spend mechanism for metagraphs and users. So essentially a transaction type that a user or wallet can say, I allow this signer, and the signer can be another wallet or a metagraph, to spend up to a certain amount of my tokens for this currency metagraph within a time frame. So this is a little bit similar. There's some similarities to the ERC20 allowance mechanism. There's also some differences in that there's a time limit on allow spend. It's one of the big issues with the allowance method is that they just end up open-ended and open to security issues. And then the next transaction type is spend transaction. So it's essentially the pairs with allow spend. It is that signer that was allowed, that's delegated the ability to spend for another user, saying I will spend this much of that allow spend. So it's up to a certain amount within the allow spend, which is important for the swapping functionality and slippage. And then finally, we're introducing this concept of an atomic action. So this is kind of a generalized wrapper that allows multiple transactions to be either accepted or rejected in a single snapshot. So in the case of the swap, one side of the transaction cannot go through while the other fails. They'll both either succeed or fail together. So these are kind of the building blocks that we've been using. These are the first dependent operations that are supported on the hypergraph that allows this metagraph to metagraph interaction to proceed in a secure way. And then kind of the additional use cases that we imagine for this functionality, of course, atomic swaps, auction and bidding systems, claimable airdrops, lending and borrowing. All these, you could potentially use those underlying mechanisms for other things. So now we can jump into taking a look at what the swap itself will look like. So this is a very simplified diagram, and I won't dive too deep on this, but one of the big takeaways here is that right there in the middle, this is the DEX metagraph. The DEX metagraph is a standard metagraph. It has no special permissions on the network. It's just making use of these new transaction primitives that we're introducing for the network itself. So there could be multiple. There's no reason that other metagraphs couldn't be built with similar functionality. So we start with the user at the top. They would submit an allow spend to the currency metagraph. For example, DOR is a currency metagraph, saying that this DEX metagraph can spend up to a certain amount of its tokens. It would then submit a order to the DEX metagraph. which would then decide, should it fulfill this order? Is it the price within the slippage boundaries? All these different logic that would go into this sort of AMM style DEX metagraph. If it decides that yes, this should go through, it would submit its own allow spend to DAG L1, and then submit an atomic action with 2 spend transactions, one for DAG, one for the currency metagraph L0 token that would either be accepted or rejected together. So this is ultimately the model that we're looking at in sort of a simplified way. So in terms of the process to build and launch the DEX metagraph, it will initially be built by the Constellation core team. At the point of launch, complete control of the metagraph will be passed to the DAO and the DAO governance system. So this is going to be a newly formed DAO that will govern the use of the metagraph. Likely one of that relationship would involve some sort of a service contract back to Constellation core team to continue maintenance. But of course, that decision making goes to it's at the hands of the DAO at that point. The DEX will launch its own L0 utility token, which will be used for boosting of liquidity pool swap rewards, and we'll go through kind of specifically how that works in a moment here. And then the DAO is responsible for voting on governance and token emissions for the DEX. There's definitely several moving pieces here with the network participants of the system. So you have liquidity providers. So these would be users that much like on Uniswap, you might stake a liquidity pair to get rewards for swaps happening through that pair. The system would have liquidity providers in that same way. There's DEX token holders, so those that hold the tokens for the DEX and can vote within the DAO. Node operators, of course, we need a significant number of node operators, specifically on the L0 layer for security and decentralization purposes for a system like this. And then you have L0 token projects, such as Door, new ones that will launch, who are interested in liquidity for their pair and want to boost the number of providers for that liquidity. So on the diagram here, we can start bottom left. So this is the liquidity providers. Again, users providing liquidity for various pools. Could be Door DAG, could be DEX token DAG, various other possibilities there. They receive a percentage of each swap. So they get paid out in the currencies that make up the pair for each swap. On the top, you have regular users. So this is regular users that want to initiate a swap. They want to swap DAG for Door or vice versa. And so they would pay a small percentage of that swap amount as the fee that would end up going to the liquidity providers. On the bottom right, we have node operators. So again, there'd be node operators that are required for running the metagraph itself. And then right in the middle, DEX token. So the concept here is that there would be monthly votes through the governance system with users that had locked up their DEX token, much like LTX is locked up for VLTX. The DEX token would be locked up in order to get the right to vote at a certain level. And then those monthly votes would determine the allocation of boost rewards through this DEX token that would go to the providers associated with specific liquidity pools and also node validators. So this incentive system gets created where you would want to hold a lot of DEX token so that you could vote that those boost rewards go to your liquidity pool or your group as a node validator. And you end up kind of with these incentives to control some of that token and to vote, mostly for yourself or for your own interests. So we can jump to the next, I think, here. So the final piece of the puzzle here, I know everyone, or many of you are very interested in what the role of Lattice Gateway might be in this new system. So the first thing is that LTX holders and thereby LTX Treasury, will be airdropped a significant quantity of these DEX tokens when it launches. For legal separation reasons, that quantity cannot be a majority, but a significant portion. So there'll be a kind of a broader airdrop as well to distribute tokens among various groups. But LTX Treasury specifically has a fairly large percentage of overall LTX in circulation. And so they would become sort of a significant holder of the DEX token. Then Lattice Gateway itself could become a bribing platform. And so these are models that we see in Curve protocol. Convex is one example of that, where since Lattice Treasury has a lot of DEX token, they have sway in voting for which liquidity pools within the DEX get these boosted rewards. They can use that power to gain bribes from projects. So a project like Door would say, "Hey, I'll give everyone that votes for my liquidity pool, 10 tokens this month," and so that would incentivize people to vote for the Door liquidity pool. Lattice Treasury would then use its sway in its vote to make that happen and boost rewards. And in that way, Lattice Gateway and VELTX holders can get monthly rewards through ecosystem tokens while still maintaining this balance of DEX token and LTX token within the Treasury. So this is, of course, a proposal. This is not a requirement that Lattice Gateway would need to turn into this, but it's I think a logical evolution of the system that is there now into this new, to be kind of a major player in this new DEX ecosystem and could continue to provide these rewards for users. So ultimately, it would be a governance decision for Lattice and VELTX holders how they wanted this to work.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I mean, I think it's a huge missing piece, and it's kind of fun to be able to pull all the different elements from different ecosystems to kind of bring them all together, streamline our operations, streamline our products so that they're serving one another. And a lot of our work in Lattice Gateway has been figuring out what things work beyond just positive market sentiment, right? Launch pads are really great when it's a bull market and retail's coming in, but they're not very productive during bear markets and when liquidity is tight. So when we look at the new model around providing this convex-like solution, we look at the success that Convex has had in the Curve ecosystem and creating their own flywheel amongst their ecosystem. And we want to incorporate some of that to really gamify the process by which we attract liquidity, how projects can get more discoverability outside of just one-to-one marketing and Twitter, Instagram, stuff like that, but really use the tools that DeFi's built and simplify it while migrating them into our ecosystem. So it's going to be a really fun opportunity for me to kind of see this come together. On kind of our final couple slides here, giving Alex a little bit of a break and before he talks about future development, last week we did one of our final demos for the Department of Defense, where we invited 60 different leaders across different federal agencies to watch us demonstrate our work that we've been doing over the past couple of years and really give kind of a presentation on the value proposition of what we've accomplished, as well as demonstrating the technology live in person so they could see all the inner workings. And it was one of the most amazing presentations that I've seen the protocol team give, one of the most amazing presentations Benjamin Diggles has given, that really brought in not only our technical capabilities, but our ability to sell value propositions for such innovation across a major organization like the federal government. it was incredible to see. And one of the main things that came out of that is a future development piece. That future development is we were able to express and show how to do a cross-chain swap. So we demonstrated that for the government last week, but of course, towards their use case that they have been building with. And it now gave us the ability to scope. We already have a head start on this future development. And so I'm really excited to kind of be able to talk through this. As you know, I said we always get sweaty palms and talking about things before they're fully baked. But I think this is a good time to kind of reveal this, as this was an amazing demonstration. I keep saying that, but it was just awesome to see it because nobody's doing this in the space. Nobody is doing this, and we got great accolades after that and a lot of momentum. So maybe Alex, you can kind of go into a little bit of what that means. How does that translate into the Web3 ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the primary pathways that we've been exploring through that work with the DoD is how we do secure cross-chain message passing, and so that involves implementation of an executor within a metagraph, and so this is kind of our future plan for integrating that back into Web3. We already know that it works within the context of the DoD demo, but there is a path to bring that back into the rest of the code base and make it available for metagraphs directly. And so the path for that would be initially metagraphs would host executors. So this would allow cross-chain communication, revalidation of messages from specifically from EVM-based networks. And then beyond that, the Hypergraph, the GL0 layer, would implement an executor that would allow revalidation of some of the complex logic validated within a metagraph through its executors. So that piece is a little bit of a larger lift, and there's still some planning around exactly which pieces should be allowed to be revalidated. There's certainly scaling issues around that we're very cognizant of and paying attention to. But kind of the picture here is that with these executor layers at different portions of the network, this is what would open up the current DEX plan for cross-chain swapping. And so we're trying to be really pragmatic about what's going to benefit the network the most right now, and that is L0 token to DAG swaps, but with a base that can be extended with this future implementation of EVM executors that will allow us to do cross-chain swapping functionality in a really secure way. Beyond that, we've been focusing on developer tooling. We're going to keep pushing more and more effort into this. We've had a lot of success in the past couple months with updates to Euclid and Hydra, our metagraph management tools. So removing some of these blockers that metagraph project teams have, which is around deployment. We have a somewhat complex infrastructure that needs to be deployed, just a lot of moving pieces. So we've simplified that and made that into a 1 or 2 click type operation. So it'll be a little more difficult than that, but quite simplified. And then we're going to continue working on, of course, documentation, education materials. We should have some things coming up this summer around ways to get involved, ways that you can get additional help with metagraph development. So that's really a focus for us going forward. Of course, we should mention ProScore. So one of our main goals is to open up the network, allow anyone to run a validator node. And we've been working on these reputation-based scoring systems. There's a lot there, and I think we see this specifically as needed for scaling the network. And so there's kind of an order to all this, right? So we don't need to scale the network until we have significant adoption. We have users using the network, and so these things will become much more important and bigger priorities. Especially things like allowing variable validator workloads. So individual nodes can have different abilities, resources available, and we could, of course, direct certain workloads to those with more resources and less to ones with fewer resources. which is a method of scaling the network. And the other method would be allowing consensus subsets within the GL0. So instead of all nodes needing to reach consensus about particular activities and snapshots, they can be broken up into subsets, which would validate independently, and so you get some horizontal scaling within the hypergraph. So these are strategies that we have on the horizon. We're keeping close tabs on, and we'll be implementing them when the time is right.
So to kind of round things out at the top of the hour, and thank you for staying with us as we go a little over the hypergraph hour. At the end of the day, what we're really building here is on this next pass of Constellation is generating this really a flywheel of activity in our ecosystem. And how do we do that? Kind of bringing in liquidity, network adoption, focus on our unique sales proposition to make it easier for developers, but also more agile to developers in the future. And we're able. The amazing thing about all this is we're able to test this out with a massive enterprise client like the federal government, but also a lot of movement across the NDF as well. Have really been able to look at real world use cases and how they can be flexible enough to work with our technology, or our technology being flexible to work with them. It's bringing in a whole new realm of different business opportunities than we've seen over the past several years. So this is a really exciting time to be in the Constellation ecosystem. And with all this development, a lot of people see the value of creating new assets. And they want to create a new cryptocurrency asset. They want to find liquidity. They want to test that market. They want the camaraderie of crypto communities. It's exciting for them. I know Kevin with NDF and Forward Edge, he's always excited about the momentum that our community has, the ability for them to digest information. So beyond that, we've got some drivers of adoption. We have the grant program that just kicked off. We worked behind the scenes to come up with the right contractual framework to make it easy to quickly get grants in the hand of people. Stardust Collective is leading their own initiative, taking their own charge with their own mission on what they want to see built in the ecosystem. If you want a grant and have an idea, they have their own set of criteria. They meet weekly. And you can go to the website that recently launched last week. The NDF DAO has opened us up to so many more opportunities in federal government. We've built a very large sales pipeline of new opportunities, not only with the NDF, but from direct solicitation. That's millions of dollars across various needs that really extend the idea of our application-specific networks. So the NDF is bringing us projects left and right. We're actually building out the AI prototype in Metagraph with them right now as well. We demonstrated that a couple of weeks ago to a group of industry leaders. An educational program. So we're going to start picking up the beat again around educational programs, making developer resources more accessible, having tutorials. And we're looking at various partners to help us kind of bring out those tutorials. And that also relates to other business development opportunities that we're looking at as well. Can we pick up the flight program? What would the new flight program look like? All things kind of on the horizon in the very near future that we can really see our ecosystem come live, and we have clear on-ramps and off-ramps for projects. There's incentives to come in by design. So it's kind of a great time to see this flywheel activity happening. And how the DEX will play such a critical role in our development, and Lattice Gateway providing kind of the gamification to further attract more liquidity.
Yeah, just to round things out here, I wanted to just go through some of the mechanisms of action that we're putting into place here. This is things that we covered earlier. We just kind of want to see them all next to each other. So, the DEX will create additional liquidity. That liquidity flowing through the DEX is going to have a direct impact on DAG as a unit of exchange. And so we're going to see increased volume on centralized exchanges for DAG. We know that increased metagraph activity triggers more snapshot fees. Snapshot fees are removed from circulation. And again, we're going to see sort of more activity and value in DAG. And then, of course, the specific tokenomics of the DEX, some of the gamification aspects, it's going to increase participation. We're going to see more DeFi interest in the network, and that's going to provide liquidity for L0 tokens. And so we're going to see a lot more value flowing from L0 tokens through DAG out to external sources. And you know, the whole system is really working together with this DEX as a core piece of it to create this positive feedback loop, so that as more metagraphs come online, we're seeing more metagraph adoption. That's going to accelerate these other features, the other mechanisms, and just result in positive, results in overall positive for the network and DAG token in general.
Well, thank you, everybody. I know that went over a little bit today, and it was a lot of content. Alex, you did an outstanding job of covering a range of things, and it always just kind of amazes me that we have the ability to go through so many different aspects of this business across different products. Yeah, it's a great job. And so I think Alex and I were talking a bit before this, what is this, Hypergraph Hour 54, and thought it might be valuable to do, a Twitter Spaces AMA for any of those that have more questions. There's a lot of content. There's probably a lot of value propositions. Yeah, we're happy to, we're gonna jump over there. I think that Genfinity or Ryan Solomon will be spinning that up, but I haven't looked at my computer for the past hour. So we'll provide that link in Telegram or Twitter, and Alex and I'll jump in there and answer any questions and take us home. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be questions everywhere.
Yeah, we haven't done one in a while, and it seems like a good time. A lot of new content out there, so bring some good questions, and we'll be there.
Sweet. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
I'm gonna just